People in YouTubeville. Today we're going to service this little Betty, the S1000 XR. Stick around. I just got this new bike. I want to get it serviced. It's the S1000 XR. Same essential motor as all of the 1000 four-cylinder BMWs, your M1000, your S1000, R. We're gonna just cover changing the oil and kind of looking the bike over a little bit since it's new to me. I don't know when it was serviced last. Do me a favor though, if you like the channel and you've been finding these videos helpful, buy some merch. These t-shirts really help me support the channel. And usually right down there on the shelf below the video, YouTube offers some varieties. So without further ado, I'm gonna put a shirt on because it's freezing out here. Duke, are you ready to change some oil in the BMW? Duke likes to be in the shop with me when I'm working on the bike. The only problem is when you get down here, sometimes he likes to lick you in the face. This is a 22. I'm gonna tell you right now, I have said that the GS is probably the easiest bike to maintain on the face of the planet. This bike is a close second. Very, very easy. Thank you, BMW, for making this bike so easy to work on. Let's go over what we need to do to get this party going. Okay, this is literally like really all you need to do this entire service. It's crazy. You're gonna need a T25 to take the lower fairing piece off. You're gonna need a T50 Torx bit for the drain plug. Sometimes you can use a 10 millimeter Allen head if you don't have that big of a one. You're going to need some sort of apparatus to take the filter off itself. I just use a pair of pliers, but I'm going to be switching to the K&N filter that has the little nut on the top of it. So next time I don't even have to use pliers. And of course, you're going to need oil. Now, the oil spec on this is 3.5 liters of a 4T 5W40. So it's actually the same oil that the GS takes, believe it or not, which is kind of convenient. And it takes the same capacity. Now, as far as the filter goes, I mentioned the K&N just because I like the little welded nut on. This is the KN160. That is K&N's part number. But really what you need is the 160 oil filter. So high flow, these are super duper popular. European, they go to pretty much all the BMWs and German bikes out there. These are cheap. These are like $10. These are like 15 bucks. It's a couple dollars more for the nut, but hey, in my opinion, it's worth it. What are you doing over here, Duke? All right, so first things first, you're gonna wanna let your bike warm up a little bit because hot oil drains much better. It's gonna take all the sludge with it. And the first thing I like to do is I like to just crack the oil fill off because that way there's no suction lock draining out. So I'm gonna crack this open so that it's ready to come out. You'll see as well on this, there's no dipstick because you check the oil with the sight glass. So here's the first thing you want to do. Want to take off, there's 3 bolts here, and these are those special BMW fasteners. So don't lose these because you can't go to the hardware store and get them. Once you have these off, this little fairing has a couple little clips on it. Just pull it straight out. Just be careful. You don't want to break them. Okay. Now that we have that fairing off, you can see the oil filters right here. Super easy to get to. Let's go ahead and get the oil draining because it's going to take a little while. We want to make sure we get all the oil out. Drain plug is right there. When you take the drain plug out, you're going to notice that the tip of it has a little magnet. You're going to want to take a rag and just clean that right off. That's just grabbing extra metal filings that might be floating around in the engine, but it's good to make sure that it's all cleaned off before you put it back in. All right, now here's a little trick. When I take this oil filter off, I'm gonna put oil all over my beautiful titanium headers. I'm not really keen on that. It's not a big deal. You can just clean it off with maybe some brake clean or something when you're done, but why not just take a little bit of an extra second to make it the right way? What you can do is take a piece of aluminum foil and make yourself a little bit of a reinforced oil chute. And this is what I like to do. It doesn't really work like 100%, but it settles down a good majority. And what I'm doing with this, so you can see, I'll move the camera in just a second, is I'm coating the header with the aluminum foil so that the oil is actually going to drain down through between the pipes right in here. So this just keeps it from dripping all over all the pipes and making an entire mess, in theory. You can see that oil filter is easy to get to, but it is kind of tight. And you're going to see that oil draining down through the pipes. And this thing is deflecting all the oil from running onto the actual headers. Oil cooler line fitted to it that's a little bit bigger than the original. So I actually have to take this off or I can't get the oil filter out. There we go. And now Mr. Oil Filter comes out, no problem. Okay, while you have this apart, make sure that you clean the edge of where the oil filter is going to go in. Make sure there's no dirt or grime that's going to get on that. And I'm doing the same thing for my oil cooler line too. I'm going to check this O-ring just to make sure it looks okay, because if it's not, it's a cheap fix and you don't really want to have an oil leak there. It looks really good to me. Also, make sure that the old O-ring has come off of where the oil filter goes. Just take a little bit of oil, dab it on the filter. Okay, now we're gonna put this in. And then I tighten it up as tight as I can with my hand, just to make sure that it is tight enough on there. You're gonna know if it leaks oil pretty quick, because we're gonna do a test before we put the fairing back together just to make sure. Let's take away our redneck funnel. Make sure you take a second and just clean any oil that might have gotten on these. It's going to smoke a little bit when you first start it. That's okay, it'll burn off. Now we're going to put this oil cooler line back in, make sure it snaps in nice and tight. The guy that had this bike before me did some things to it. It's really, really fast. It's almost 200 horsepower with all the stuff he did. This may look slightly different than yours, but trust me, very similar. If you haven't done velocity stacks on one of these babies, I would highly recommend that. That's for sure. All right, so we got that in. We're going to tighten this up. Make sure this is nice and snug. You don't want an oil leak and blowing your engine. The reason why I take a second to clean all the residual oil off is because if you have a leak, you're going to want to see it. And if you didn't clean it off, how do you know if it's a leak or if it's just old oil? All right, let's get the drain plug back in there. Make sure the crush gasket's on there too. If you have access to a new one, be good to have one. There's your sight glass. You'll see how this works in just a minute. Let's get some oil in this. I add 3 quarts and then I start checking. I'm gonna add a little more because it's just barely registering on the sight glass and I don't want to start it up that dry. So we'll just add maybe another, I don't know, 250 milliliters. So you can see how much that actually increased the oil on the sight glass, which actually brings it into the red line spec area. So let's go ahead and start the bike and make sure that you don't have any leaks. Make sure you put your oil fill cap back in. I wish the GS had a nice cap like this where you could just reach down and unscrew it. You don't have to use a special tool or anything. That thing sounds awesome. You know who doesn't like the way that sounds? The dog. Duke, it's okay, buddy, it's okay. Oh, I know, it's scary. Scary, yeah, it's scary. Just double check, make sure nothing's leaking. Everything looks good. Like to check the bottom of the oil filter, make sure that I tighten that up enough. That looks good. And we're low on the sight glass now, but remember the oil is cold. So you're gonna get different readings between hot and cold. This is 3.5 liters of total oil capacity with the oil change. So we're gonna go ahead and add just a little bit more, try to get it right up into that sight glass range. It takes a minute for the oil to drain down, and you don't wanna overfill, because overfilling the oil is just as bad as having low oil. You can cause the pump to cavitate and foam and all types of awesome stuff. Look out, Duke. Okay, so you shut it off and you let it run for about, you let it sit for about a minute, and then we recheck the sight glass. Now we'll just put the cover back on, and there's those two clips on the front cover here. You got to clip back in to the plastic. I like to try to get one of the screws kind of started. That way I know I'm in the right location. It's a little finicky, but it's not bad. And then to engage these clips, I like to put my hand behind the fairing and just kind of snap it in place. Be careful, the exhaust pipe is hot. All right, so there's one more thing we're gonna do, and that's resetting the service indicator light on the bike to the current mileage so that it doesn't go early. You need to buy either a GS 911, or is it a GS 911? I forget, but there's a scan tool you can buy that's kind of expensive, but what I did was I bought an OBD Link MX Plus. So this one allows you to reset, and it has like the bi-directional support for the bike. Allows you to reset the check engine light instead of having to go to the dealer, which is ridiculous. Take the seat off. That is your service connector. It comes out a little bit hard because of the fact that it's watertight. Now, you need an Android phone to run this. The iPhones don't like it. So I've got an Android burner. What you're gonna do is you're gonna go to your MotoScan app, and then you can see all the different series. This is the S series, and we have the S1000 XR right there. And before we can do anything, we've got to flip the bike on. We're not actually going to start the bike. We're just going to power it up. That way the dongle will show that it's communicating with the bike. It's connected to the host. You'll see that change in just a moment. Literally, this phone's like 20 bucks. I think the adapter's like 100. This will save you the first time you use it. Besides for that, you get to see a lot of different things. And we're going to go to the instrument cluster. Boom. Takes it a second to establish communication. And then you can see service reset is right there. So we're going to click on that. And it's going to tell us essentially how many miles the bike has or kilometers, the date of the motorcycle. So make sure that that is correctly set, which it is. It's February 16th. And then it's going to tell us when we want to reset the bike for service for 1 year from now. You can see there the date and then how many more miles we want to do it. So we're going to reset it. And we'll reset the date as well. Boom. All set. Reset. Okay. Now, let me show you what this does. Well, first, also, you want to make sure you back out of this, just in case. There we go. Let me show you what it does to the bike now. So you go down to your menu. You're going to go to your My Vehicle, and you're going to actually just click over on the Wonder Wheel. You'll see your little detail stuff. Of course, not everything's going to show right now because of the fact that we're not moving. But you can see there right now, the date has been reset for 1 year. And you can see the remaining distance for the service has been reset as well. So we added an extra couple thousand miles on that. Sweet. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, it's just my opinions on how to service. You're doing so at your own risk. But boy, it's nice to be connected to your bike, be able to do the maintenance yourself and kind of keep an eye on things. Obviously, a service just isn't an oil change. You're going to want to check your chain tension on this bike, fasteners, make sure everything's good. Obviously, your brake fluid is super important and your clutch free play adjustment as well. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please stick around. We're going to be doing lots of videos on the XR. So throw a like down there if you don't mind and hit the subscribe button. As always, ride safe.